I think the COVID has really challenged us to live a more sustainable life, to live in a more organic or natural. And maybe structures that are more hierarchical or authoritarian are being dismantled, and we're called to live and grow more naturally. And I think that's one of the points of the story of the vine and the branches today. That what is most natural in us is most spiritual. And in our faith we say grace builds upon nature, what's natural, and it organically grows and develops. And the vine and branches today is an image of the church. That we're connected to that vine that is Jesus Christ, His unconditional love, and that we are those branches that naturally grow and bring forth life. And so how do we become an inclusive community, an environment of God's unconditional love so that we can grow into who we are naturally? And I think in a country and world that's often so divided and polarized, it's the greatest gift of our faith. And we know this is natural for humans to grow. You know, psychologically, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which are basically those basic needs that have to be met for us to naturally grow and develop. We all want the world to be a better place. And maybe Mother Teresa put it best. She said, you know, what's wrong with the world is that we forgot we belong to each other. We're part of that same vine. And I can't help but think of this image of the vine and branches and migrant workers who get this image and what it means much better than I do by the work they do every day. But I'm reminded of Cesar Chavez, who helped migrant workers organize and fight for rights of justice for when they were being oppressed. If you know his story of how the worker movement that Chavez led. But one day they interviewed Cesar Chavez and they asked him, boy, these migrant workers, they really love you. And Cesar said, it's mutual. Mutuality, that we belong to each other, that there's a kinship among us. And I've talked before about Gregory Boyle, who works with reformed gang members that have had all kinds of issues, from drug addictions to abuse in childhood to spending time in prison, murder. And yet, in the environment of inclusive love, of mutuality, that even enemies that would work together, that when they get to know each other, they no longer demonize each other. And these are the greatest ideals of Christianity. And he talks from Alice Miller, who says that what the Christian is called to be is enlightened witness. That we are called to be a mirror to show people that they are just who God's called them to be. And not to hold a bar up, but a mirror. And to often dismantle images of guilt and shame and condemnation. And Boyle says, when we do this unconditional love, and show people that no prison can keep it out, death can't touch it, for the soul can feel its worth. And I know we've all probably, with people in our life, family, friends, ones, tried to change people. And then we probably have stories that we've seen miraculous changes because they've came to themselves. They've recognized they're the beloved of God. And that's the story today of Paul and Barnabas. It's the story of the God of surprises, a miracle. This man, Saul, who murdered followers of the way, had a transformation. And imagine how he had to go back to a community who they may have had loved ones or friends who he maybe even killed. And what did he have? He had a person that believed in him, the son of encouragement, Barnabas. And as Barnabas loved and believed in him, transformation would continue. And Paul wasn't a finished product. He would still need a lot of pruning. But it was by an awareness of what God's grace could naturally do in him. And I think, as we look at the gospel, that today we could see that we are connected, that we belong to each other, that we are a part of that vine. And oftentimes we create a pecking of order of who's in, who's out, who has the power, who doesn't. And John challenges us to say the only thing that really matters is our connection to the vine, which is also our connection to each other. And that unconditional love that brings forth life naturally. And that the forming and shaping can happen, that we can truly live differently, that we can see that we belong to each other. And this gospel is part of the Last Supper discourse. It's part of the meal. And in a sense, I would say that this is an environment of God's unconditional love. That what needs absorbed, what needs guilt, what shame, what wounds does that love need to absorb? What does God naturally need to prune so that we bring forth fruit? And so today, as we gather around the table, let's recognize, as Mother Teresa said, that we belong to each other.